You know, life has a way of surprising us in the quietest moments. Maybe you're sitting at the kitchen table with a crossword puzzle or enjoying coffee with a friend after church. Everything feels normal until suddenly it doesn't. You notice the person across from you is struggling to lift their cup. Their words sound off, almost like they're speaking through a mouthful of cotton. In that moment, the world seems to shrink and your heart starts pounding. Something inside you knows this could be serious. That's exactly the kind of moment we're talking about today. It's called the golden minutes, those first critical moments after someone shows signs of a stroke. Doctors will tell you these minutes can mean the difference between a full recovery and a lifetime of challenges, or worse. And the truth is, strokes don't just happen in movies or to other people. They can happen to a spouse, a neighbor, even to us. The older we get, the more important it becomes to know what to look for and how to react without hesitation. By the time we're done talking, you'll have a clear, simple plan for what to do if a stroke happens right in front of you. You won't need a medical degree, just a bit of knowledge and the courage to act quickly. And that knowledge could save a life, maybe even someone you love. If you find this helpful, I'd love for you to like this video, subscribe to Vibrant Elders, and share your thoughts down in the comments. Your experiences might be the very thing that prepares someone else. So let's walk through this together, starting with the very first thing you need to recognize when every second counts. I want you to picture something with me for a moment, not to frighten you, but to help you be ready. You're in your favorite chair, maybe the recliner you've had for years, watching the afternoon news. The sunlight's coming through the window, and everything feels peaceful. Then you hear a sound, not a crash, not a shout, just a strange half-word coming from your spouse in the kitchen. You glance over, and the way they're holding themselves is different. One shoulder looks lower than the other, and they're gripping the countertop like they're trying to steady the world. You ask if they're okay, and their answer comes out slurred, almost like they've been to the dentist. That's the moment, the one you'll remember down to the second. And here's the thing. From this point on, the clock isn't just ticking, it's screaming. In the world of strokes, every passing minute can mean millions of brain cells lost. The doctors call this the golden minutes for a reason. What you do next will shape the rest of this person's life. And I know that sounds heavy, but it's the truth we all need to hear, especially as we get older, because the chances of a stroke happening in our circles only grow with time. Now, I'm not here to tell you to panic. In fact, panic is the last thing we want. What we want is action, quick and confident. And the best way to get there is to picture these situations now, before they happen. The more familiar this feels in your mind, the faster your body will move when it's real. That's why I'm painting you a picture instead of just rattling off a checklist. If you can see it, you can act on it. Let me give you a real-life story that stuck with me. A neighbor of mine, Bill, was in his garage polishing up his old Chevy when his wife came out to ask if he wanted lunch. She noticed he was holding the rag in his left hand instead of his right, which was unusual for him. When she asked if he was okay, he tried to answer, but it came out jumbled. She didn't waste a second. She called 911, told them she suspected a stroke, and the ambulance was there in minutes. Bill ended up getting treatment so quickly that within a few weeks, he was back tinkering with that car. The doctor told them flat out, if you'd waited, this would have been a very different outcome. That's why I want you to lock this in your memory. Strokes don't announce themselves politely. They don't give you time to think it over. They slip in quietly, and then they demand immediate attention. The earlier you spot them, the more you can do to help. And it's not just about survival. It's about quality of life. Those golden minutes can mean the difference between walking unassisted or needing a wheelchair, between clear speech or struggling to find words, between independence and relying on full-time care. When you see something off, like a sudden droop on one side of the face, trouble lifting an arm, or words that sound wrong, don't brush it off. Don't assume they just need to sit down. Treat it as an emergency until proven otherwise. Because in America, we have an incredible system in place for stroke response. Trained paramedics, hospitals with stroke teams ready to go, and treatments that can reverse the damage if given in time. But all of that only works if the patient gets to them fast. So, as we step into the next part of our talk, keep this scene fresh in your mind. Because recognizing that something is wrong, that gut feeling that says, this isn't normal, is the first bridge to action. And crossing it quickly is how you give someone the very best chance to come back from a stroke. When we talk about a stroke, I want you to think about something you already know well, a house with plumbing. Water runs through those pipes every day without you thinking twice about it. Now, imagine one day a pipe gets completely clogged. Nothing can get through. Or worse, a pipe bursts and water floods into the walls. Either way, that part of the house is in trouble until you fix it. That's what happens in the brain during a stroke. Your brain has a network of blood vessels that carry oxygen and nutrients, keeping every part alive and working. In most strokes, called ischemic strokes, one of those vessels gets blocked by a clot, like a pipe clogged with debris. In other cases, hemorrhagic strokes, a vessel bursts and blood spills into the brain where it shouldn't be, a bit like a pipe breaking inside the wall. Now, I know those are medical terms, but here's the only part you really need to remember. Whether it's blocked or bleeding, the brain is in trouble. And unlike a pipe in a house, you can't just turn off the water and deal with it later. The brain doesn't have a spare supply sitting in a tank somewhere. The moment blood flow is interrupted, brain cells start to die. And unlike skin or muscle, those cells don't grow back. That's why every minute matters so much. For folks in our age group, the risk goes up for a few reasons. Years of wear and tear on blood vessels from high blood pressure, cholesterol, or heart disease can make them more fragile or more likely to clog. If you've ever been told you have atrial fibrillation, that irregular heartbeat can also send clots toward the brain. Even if you've been healthy, simply getting older means the blood vessels are not as flexible as they used to be. That's not to scare you. It's just the truth, and knowing it means we can be prepared. I remember a man from our community center, Frank. He was 68, always active, loved gardening. One morning, while talking to his daughter on the phone, he suddenly couldn't get his words out. He told me later, "I knew what I wanted to say, but my mouth wouldn't cooperate." His daughter recognized that something was wrong and called 911 right away. Turns out, he had a small clot in one of the vessels feeding the speech center of his brain. Because she acted fast, doctors were able to give him a clot-busting medication, and within hours he was speaking normally again. That's how critical early recognition is. Treatment can reverse the damage, but only if given in time. It's important to understand that a stroke isn't always dramatic. Hollywood likes to show someone clutching their head and collapsing, but in real life, it can be much quieter. A small change in the way someone walks, talks, or moves one side of their body. And those changes can happen in seconds. If you're wondering why I'm taking the time to explain this in such detail, it's because when you understand what's actually going on in the brain, you see why waiting to see if it gets better is dangerous. You wouldn't watch water pour from a broken pipe for hours before calling a plumber. You'd get help immediately. It's the same with a stroke, except instead of drywall and flooring, it's someone's speech, memory, or ability to live independently on the line. So now that you understand the basics, blocked pipe or burst pipe, both stealing oxygen from the brain, you're ready for the next step. Because the moment you notice those signs, you're already in the golden minutes, and how you act in that window can make all the difference. And that brings us to the most urgent truth in stroke response. Speed is everything. By now you can see why a stroke isn't something you can put on hold, even for an hour. But here's where it gets even more serious, and also where hope comes into the picture. Doctors talk about a window of time after a stroke begins when certain treatments can do the most good. In most cases, that window is up to 4.5 hours. Sounds like a lot of time, right? But don't let that fool you. The truth is, the earlier treatment starts, the better the outcome, and every single minute matters. That's why they call it the golden minutes. Think of it like this. Imagine your garden in the middle of summer. You forget to water it for just one day, and the plants start to droop. If you get the water to them quickly, they perk right back up. Wait too long, and the leaves wither, no matter what you do afterward. The brain works the same way. Once those cells lose their blood supply, they can't survive for long. And the clock doesn't stop ticking while you debate what to do. I've heard stroke experts put it bluntly, time is brain. For every minute a stroke goes untreated, nearly 2 million brain cells die. If that sounds dramatic, it's because it is. This is why in America, paramedics are trained to treat stroke calls like high-speed rescue missions. When you say stroke to a 911 dispatcher, they alert emergency crews to get to you as fast as possible. Those crews don't just scoop you up and drive. They start checking vital signs, giving oxygen, and sometimes even alerting the nearest stroke-ready hospital before you arrive. That way, a specialized team is waiting the second you roll through the door. But here's the part many people get wrong. Just because the treatment window might be 4.5 hours doesn't mean you have that long to decide. That number includes the time it takes to recognize the stroke, call for help, wait for the ambulance, get to the hospital, go through tests, and start the treatment. All of that has to fit inside that window. The actual time you have to get moving? Usually less than an hour if you want the best chance for recovery. Let me tell you about Janet, a retired school teacher I met at a local health fair. She told me her husband had a stroke one morning while they were making breakfast. She noticed he dropped his fork, but he laughed it off, saying he just fumbled it. A few minutes later, she caught the slight droop on his face when he smiled. Instead of waiting, she grabbed the phone and told 911 she suspected a stroke. The ambulance was there in under 10 minutes. At the hospital, doctors confirmed it and gave him the clot-busting medication within an hour of the first symptom. They told her that speed likely saved his ability to walk and talk without therapy. That's the heart of the golden minutes. Knowing that every action you take in those first moments directly affects how much of the person's life they get back afterward. It's not just about surviving. It's about preserving independence, personality, and memories. So, when you hear me say golden minutes, I want you to picture a countdown clock starting the second symptoms appear. Your mission is to beat that clock, not by running around in a panic, but by acting with calm urgency. Recognize the signs, make the call, and trust the system we have in place to do the rest. The next thing we need to talk about is exactly how to spot those signs, because once you can see them, you'll never mistake them for anything else. So now we know that speed is everything. But here's the question. How do you know for sure it's a stroke? The truth is, you don't need fancy medical equipment or a doctor's training. What you need is a simple way to remember the warning signs so you can act the second they appear. That's where the FAST method comes in. And when I say simple, I mean something you could remember even if you just woke up from a nap. FAST stands for face, arm, speech, and time. For short words that could be the difference between life and tragedy. Let's start with face. Ask the person to smile. It sounds almost silly, but it's one of the quickest ways to check for a stroke. In a healthy smile, both sides of the mouth lift evenly. But during a stroke, one side may droop or look weaker. Sometimes it's subtle. You might only notice it when you really look, but even a small change is worth taking seriously. Next is arm. Ask them to raise both arms in front of them, palms up, like they're holding a tray. In a stroke, one arm may drift downward or feel too weak to lift at all. This can happen suddenly, even if they were using both arms just minutes earlier. Then comes speech. Ask them to repeat a simple sentence, something like, "The sun is shining today." You're not just listening for slurred speech. You're also watching for words that are jumbled, missing, or completely wrong. Sometimes the person might understand what you're saying, but can't get the words out clearly. Other times, they might not understand the request at all. And finally, the T stands for time. Time to call 911. Not your neighbor, not your cousin who knows about strokes, and definitely not the urge to wait it out. The moment you see any of those first three signs, it's time to act. Even if the symptoms disappear after a few minutes, you still make the call. Those temporary symptoms could be a mini stroke, and they're often a warning that a bigger one is coming. I remember a story from a church picnic a few years back. One of the men, Harold, started talking in a way that didn't make sense, almost like he was telling a joke but forgot the punchline. His friend, a retired nurse, immediately asked him to smile. When she saw the droop, she didn't hesitate. She got someone to call 911 while she stayed by his side. The paramedics arrived, confirmed it was a stroke, and rushed him to the hospital. Later, the doctor told Harold he was lucky to have a friend who recognized the signs. Those few minutes made all the difference in his recovery. The FAST method isn't just a trick for spotting strokes. It's your permission slip to take action without second-guessing yourself. You don't have to be 100% sure. You don't have to wait for every sign to show up. If you see even one, you treat it as a stroke. Because here's the truth. If it's not a stroke, the worst that happens is a trip to the ER. But if it is, and you hesitate, you can lose precious abilities forever. So, keep FAST in your mind like you'd keep an important phone number. Maybe even write it on a sticky note and put it on the fridge. Share it with your spouse, your friends, your walking group. The more people who know it, the safer your circle becomes. And once you recognize those signs and know it's time to call, the next step is just as important, because what you say in that 911 call can set the wheels of life-saving action into motion before help even arrives. Once you've spotted those warning signs using fast, the very next thing you do is make the call. And when I say make the call, I mean 911. No exceptions, no delays, no let's wait and see. The moment you pick up that phone, you're starting a chain of events that can save someone's life, but the way you speak to the dispatcher matters more than most people realize. When the operator answers, you want to be clear and direct right from the start. Use the word stroke immediately. This isn't the time to say, I think something might be wrong, or he's feeling a little off. Instead, say, I think my wife is having a stroke. Those words tell the dispatcher to treat this as a high-priority medical emergency. They will send paramedics trained for stroke situations and alert them before they even reach your door. Next, give them the person's age, because age often guides how responders prepare treatment. Then describe the symptoms you've noticed. Be specific. Instead of saying, she's acting strange, you'd say, her right side of the face is drooping, her speech is slurred, and her right arm is weak. This paints a clear picture for the dispatcher and helps paramedics know what to expect. One of the most important details you can give is the time symptoms began. This is critical for doctors because many stroke treatments, like clot-busting medication, are only given within a certain time window. If you're not sure exactly when it started, give your best estimate, but don't skip this detail. It can be the deciding factor in what treatment the patient receives. And if you know their medical history, especially whether they take blood thinners or have heart conditions, mention it. These details can help paramedics prepare the safest and fastest treatment plan before even arriving at the hospital. Here's how it might sound all put together. My husband is having a stroke. He's 72 years old. Symptoms started about 10:15 this morning. The right side of his face is drooping, his speech is slurred, and his right arm is weak. He takes blood pressure medication and is on a blood thinner. That kind of clarity doesn't just help. It shaves off precious minutes once you reach the hospital because the emergency team already knows what they're walking into. Now, I know in the heat of the moment, it's easy to forget what to say. Your heart will be racing, your mind will be spinning, and it's tempting to just blurt out, "Help, please come." That's why I recommend practicing this in your mind ahead of time, just like you'd practice what to do during a fire drill. The more familiar the steps feel, the more automatic they'll be when it counts. I think about my friend Carol, whose father had a stroke during dinner one evening. She said later that she'd watched a community health video about exactly what to say to 911, and when the moment came, the words just rolled out of her mouth. By the time the ambulance arrived, the hospital was already preparing the stroke unit. That preparation saved at least 20 minutes in the emergency room, minutes that could have meant a bigger recovery or a permanent disability. Once you've made the call, your work isn't done, but you can take a deep breath knowing you've already taken the most important step. The next few minutes will be about keeping the person safe and stable until professional help walks through that door. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about next, what you do while you're waiting for the sirens to get closer. So, you've made the call, you've given the dispatcher all the key details, and now you're in that strange, nerve-wracking space where help is on the way but hasn't arrived yet. These few minutes can feel like an eternity, but what you do or don't do during this time matters a great deal for the person having a stroke. The first priority is keeping them calm and comfortable. Sit them down or have them lie on their back with the head slightly elevated. About a 30-degree angle is good. You can use a couple of pillows behind their head and shoulders. This position helps with blood flow and reduces the risk of further complications. If they're on the floor, you can prop them gently with whatever's handy: blankets, a folded jacket, anything that supports without bending the neck too much. Stay close to them and speak in a calm, reassuring voice. A stroke can be confusing and frightening, and they may not fully understand what's happening. You might say something like, "Help is on the way, you're not alone," and keep your tone steady. Your presence can make them feel secure and reduce panic, which is important because stress can affect blood pressure. Loosen any tight clothing, especially around the neck and chest, to make breathing easier. If they're wearing a tie, scarf, or anything restrictive, gently remove or loosen it. This might seem small, but it can make them more comfortable and keep airways open. One of the biggest things to remember: don't give them anything to eat or drink. I know it's instinct to offer water, especially if they say they're thirsty, but a stroke can affect the muscles that control swallowing. Giving food or liquid could lead to choking or make the situation worse. The same goes for medication. Unless a medical professional on the phone instructs you otherwise, don't hand over aspirin or anything else. This is especially important because some strokes are caused by bleeding, and aspirin can make that worse. While you're waiting, keep an eye on their breathing. If they start to have trouble or become unconscious, you may need to begin CPR. The 911 operator can guide you through it step by step. In fact, most dispatchers are trained to give clear, calm instructions if CPR becomes necessary, so don't be afraid to follow their lead. If you already know CPR, that's even better. You can start immediately while they walk you through the timing. Try to keep track of any changes in their symptoms. Did their speech get more slurred? Did the weakness spread from one arm to a leg? Did they become more alert or less responsive? These details can be extremely helpful for the paramedics when they arrive. If you have a notepad nearby, jot it down. If not, just make a mental note. I think back to a story from our neighborhood a few years ago. One woman, Linda, spotted her husband showing stroke symptoms and called 911 right away. While she waited, she sat next to him, kept talking calmly, and resisted the urge to do something just for the sake of doing something. By the time paramedics arrived, she had a clear list of what she'd seen and when it happened. That information went straight to the hospital team and helped them make fast, accurate treatment decisions. Waiting for help can be the hardest part emotionally because it feels passive, but it's not. You're actively protecting them, preventing harm, and gathering information. That's critical work. And when those paramedics finally come through your door, you'll hand over not just the patient, but everything they need to give the very best care. Now, before we move on, there's one temptation I want to talk about, because in moments like these, some people decide to skip the ambulance altogether and drive to the hospital themselves. That choice can cost precious time, and here's why. I know what some folks are thinking right now. If this is so urgent, why not just grab the car keys and head straight to the hospital? It feels logical, right? The hospital might only be 10 or 15 minutes away, and driving there yourself sounds faster than waiting for an ambulance. But here's the truth. In a stroke situation, that choice can actually cost you time, and it can put the patient at greater risk. The moment you call 911 and say stroke, you're not just getting a ride. You're activating a mobile emergency room. Paramedics aren't just drivers. They're trained medical professionals who can begin assessment and treatment before you even leave your driveway. They can check vital signs, give oxygen, start 4 lines if needed, and even perform preliminary stroke assessments so the hospital knows exactly what's coming. And here's something most people don't realize. When paramedics suspect a stroke, they can radio ahead to the nearest stroke-ready hospital. That means a specialized team is already assembling while you're still on the way. CT scanners can be cleared, neurologists alerted, and medication prepped. If you drive yourself, none of that happens until you walk through the hospital doors, and those precious minutes get eaten up by triage and waiting for the right team to gather. Then there's the safety factor. Driving with a medical emergency in the passenger seat is not like running to the store. Your focus will be split between the road and the person next to you, and every unexpected slow driver, red light, or traffic jam will add to your stress. If their condition worsens en route, say they lose consciousness or stop breathing, you can't pull over and start CPR fast enough. Paramedics, on the other hand, can respond instantly because there's a whole team in the back of that ambulance. I remember talking to a man named George after a health seminar. His wife had a stroke while they were watching TV one evening. He told me he thought about driving her himself, but something in the back of his mind said, "Call 911. When the paramedics arrived, they immediately gave her oxygen, checked her blood sugar, and did a quick stroke scale test. By the time they reached the hospital, the ER team was waiting at the door. The doctor later told him, "If you'd driven her, we'd be starting from scratch, and she'd have lost another 20 minutes. There's also another important point. Paramedics know exactly which hospitals are equipped to handle strokes. Not every hospital has a stroke unit or the ability to give clot-busting drugs right away. If you drive to the wrong place, you could end up needing a transfer, which adds even more time. EMS crews know the locations, the capabilities, and the fastest routes, even if that means bypassing the closest hospital for one that can provide specialized care immediately. Think of it this way. Calling 911 is like flipping on a fast-track switch for medical care. You're not just getting transportation. You're getting an entire system moving towards saving that person's life before you've even hung up the phone. That's something you simply can't do on your own. So the next time you hear someone say, "We'll just drive," remember that in a stroke, speed and preparation matter more than the distance to the hospital. Let the professionals handle the road, the treatment, and the coordination so you can focus on the most important thing, being there for the person who needs you. Now that you know why getting professional help immediately is so critical, it's time to wrap this up with something just as important: the encouragement and preparation you can carry forward so you're ready before a stroke ever happens. If there's one thing I hope you carry with you after everything we've talked about, it's this: you have more power than you think. A stroke is a medical emergency, yes, but it's also a moment where your knowledge, your calm, and your quick action can literally save someone's future. That's not an exaggeration. You can be the difference between someone walking out of the hospital and someone who never regains their independence. The truth is, we can't predict when or where a stroke will happen. It might be during a Sunday service, at a neighbor's barbecue, or in the quiet of your own living room. But we can prepare ourselves so that when it does, we're not left frozen or fumbling. That preparation starts with one simple thing: memorizing fast, face, arm, speech, time. Keep it in your mind until it's second nature, just like remembering your own phone number. Better yet, make it visible. Write it on a card and stick it to the fridge, the bathroom mirror, or next to the phone. Share it with your family, your friends, your church group, your bowling team, anyone you spend time with. The more people who know it, the better your safety net becomes. Imagine if every person in your circle could recognize a stroke in under a minute. That's an entire community ready to protect each other. I've seen this in action. A woman named Darlene from our community center told me that after a health workshop, she made it her mission to teach fast to everyone she knew. A year later, one of her friends at bingo started showing signs, slurred speech and weakness in her right arm. Because Darlene recognized it instantly, she called 911 without hesitation. The friend got treatment in time and made a full recovery. Darlene said, "It wasn't luck, it was knowing what to do and doing it fast." It also helps to have a plan for emergencies in general. Keep a list of important phone numbers in a place everyone can find. 911 at the top, of course, but also your doctor, nearby family members, and a neighbor you trust. If you have a cell phone, consider adding an ICE contact in case of emergency, so paramedics know who to call if you can't speak for yourself. And don't underestimate the power of staying calm. It's natural to feel fear when someone's life is on the line, but panic wastes time and clouds your thinking. You might not feel calm inside, but you can project it on the outside. Speak slowly, move with purpose, and keep your voice steady. That sense of control can be just as comforting to the patient as the medical help on the way. You might be thinking, "I'm not a hero, I'm just an ordinary person." But here's the secret. Most heroes in stroke situations aren't wearing uniforms. They're spouses, friends, neighbors, or even strangers in the right place at the right time. And the only thing that sets them apart is that they recognized the signs and acted without delay. So, take this knowledge and make it part of your life. Keep fast somewhere you'll see it every day. Talk about it with your loved ones. Treat it like fire safety, something you hope you'll never need, but you're ready for just in case. Because one day, you might be the reason someone gets a second chance, and when that day comes, you'll already know exactly what to do. And with that, we've walked through every step, from spotting the first signs to calling for help and staying steady until professionals take over. Now, let's bring it all together and end with a reminder of why this knowledge is worth holding onto for the rest of your life. We've covered a lot today, but if you remember nothing else, remember this: when it comes to a stroke, every second counts, and you already have the tools to make those seconds matter. You don't need to be a doctor, a nurse, or an EMT. You just need to recognize the signs, make the call, and stay calm until help arrives. Think about the people you care about: your spouse, your children, your friends, your church family. In a moment of crisis, your quick action could mean they keep their independence, their ability to laugh, to speak, to hug you back. That's not just saving a life, it's saving a life worth living. Fast is your key. Face, arm, speech, time. For little words that can make you the lifeline someone desperately needs. Put it where you'll see it. Teach it to others. The more we talk about it, the more prepared our communities become. And here's the best part: by being ready, you're not just protecting others, You're making sure that if the tables ever turn and you're the one who needs help, the people around you will know exactly what to do for you. That's the kind of care we build together. Neighbors looking out for neighbors, friends for friends. If you found this video helpful, I'd love for you to like it, subscribe to Vibrant Elders, and share your own thoughts or experiences in the comments. You never know, your story might be the one that inspires someone else to be ready. Life is precious, and every day we get is a gift. Let's protect those days for ourselves and for the people we love. Because in the end, being prepared isn't just about saving time. It's about saving the moments that matter most.